Welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, brought to you by OnlineGreatBooks.com, where we talk about the good life, the great books, great conversation, and great ideas.
Hello, dear listener. This is Brett. I'm the producer of the Online Great Books podcast. Welcome back. And if you hear some excitement in my voice, I just finished putting together this first part of Scott and Karl's discussion on Aquinas' commentary on the Metaphysics, and it featured some format adjustments. I'm not saying these things are permanent, what you're going to hear today, but it was a very different kind of Online Great Books episode, and it had an energy that I just loved, and I think you're going to enjoy it as well. Now, it is my job to tell you something about the show beyond the title, usually in these monologues. Today, I'm not going to do that. We're just going to let it rip, and you're going to have a completely authentic experience of something a little bit different. I hope you'll trust me on that. If I start saying, well, then, there was this, and then there was that, and suddenly there was this guy, Jimmy, just have the authentic experience. So this week and next, it's Aquinas' commentary on the Metaphysics of Aristotle. You've probably been waiting for some Edward Gibbon. You're not getting any Edward Gibbon this week. His name will be mentioned in this show. You're also not getting any Edward Gibbon next week. Gives you some time to get caught up on your Gibbon. Everybody is behind on their Gibbon, always. And the decline and fall of the Roman Empire is coming, as they say. Remember to visit OnlineGreatBooks.com. Make sure you're on the mailing list so you can get news about what is happening with the show and the community. And if you ask me, Brett, the producer of the Online Great Books podcast, I'd say you're in for a treat this week and next week. But as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for your time and attention. And here is part 1 of 2 in Scott and Karl's discussion of Aquinas' commentary on the Metaphysics. Take care.
I'm Scott Hambrick.
I'm Karl Schut.
And today, we are going to experiment. We're going to experiment because we're too busy. We've been reading Edward Gibbon's History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, which I love. Do you love it?
It's a boomer history.
Yeah, he's the first boomer.
But he's so good. I have 180 quotes underlined already. Some of them just because it's so well written, not because I really care about that particular point.
Yeah, he's really clever. He can be funny and snarky. He's a good writer. I really enjoyed it. We're going to continue working on that. It's spring. There are things to plant. There are boxes to move. There are chickens to butcher. And Karl and I are a little bit behind on our reading. So today we're going to read a chunk, as much as we can stand, of Thomas Aquinas' commentary on the Metaphysics by Aristotle. So we're going to comment on his comments on Aristotle.
Right. Commentary on the commentary. Sometimes you're going to comment on my comments.
It's going to get real metaphysics. We've had some folks that have actually asked for us to do a series, like through Patreon or something like that. I would never use Patreon. We can run our own payments, but through a little monthly low price service where we work our way through something like. I think this was actually requested, Aquinas' Metaphysics commentary or one of the Summa. So, yeah, we thought we would do this. We're also live streaming this on the Telegram channel. So you go to t.me/ScottStream, and maybe if we do this again, you'll see that. And any of you Telegram people that are listening, if you have a question or something, feel free to throw it in there, and we'll try to get it. Neither one of us are Thomas experts or anything like that. Yeah, we'll try to answer those questions. I think this will be interesting for a number of reasons. One, I'm selfish and I want to read this.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I think a lot of people don't really know how to go about reading something like this. Like, they know their phonics and they know some words and stuff like that. But to sit down and with difficult material and like parse it out and do the close reading thing, I think a lot of people don't really know how to approach it. You should just jump in, like don't even worry about it. Just jump in and do your best. But I think we'll get to model some of that. I think that could be helpful to somebody.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think there's different gears that you need to do with reading. like when I have to read Immanuel Kant, I just have to put it in fourth
Neutral.
gear. No, not neutral.
Oh,
You just have to keep driving,
Yeah.
and just keep going and let him assault you for 480 pages. And then at the end, you get what you get. That's not the ideal way, but sometimes you just have to get through the book. Maybe for the inspectional reading, you just got to get it through it. But for a commentary on the metaphysics, probably the reason you're going to read the commentary on the metaphysics is because the metaphysics is so darn hard.
Yeah.
And so you'll want to chew on it. Also, because it is Thomas Aquinas, it's good stuff. He was one of the smarter people that's ever lived, I think.
Top 3.
Yeah. Who's your other 2?
Aristotle,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not sure.
Isaac Newton.
I don't think so. I'm inclined to say Plato, but nobody really knows what he thought.
Right. Remember that. Nobody knows what Plato thought. When people say Plato said, you just stop him and say, no, he didn't.
Right. He wrote a dialogue, which might be a total fiction. Like he might have been a Shakespeare type character and thought, I'm going to write these interesting philosophical dramas.
Mm-hmm.
It might be like writing a Law and Order episode, but
Yeah.
a philosophy mystery. We don't know what he was doing.
So what you should do is say Socrates said.
Yeah.
In Plato's dialogue, whatever it was.
But even if we don't know what he thought or what he actually believed, I know that whoever wrote those things could at least think in that way and throw it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's one of those 3. Newton's a giant, but he doesn't have the breadth and scope.
Right.
Nothing even close to what these men could do.
What if Newton were alive when Twitter? What would he tweet about? Numerology.
The Bitcoin. He'd be a crypto bug 24/7 all the time. And he would fight with Taleb.
He'd be a crypto bug that was into end times prophecies.
Right. It's ridiculous.
And alchemy.
Yeah, he'd fight about numerology with Taleb.
And in his off hours, he would invent a new kind of math.
Would he use his own name?
I don't know.
Numerology incel perv would be his username. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, I think that this would be interesting. He's a genius. I think it might be useful to have some people listen to us read. It's not however we're going to do this. I don't even know. We've never even tried this. However we do it may be.
How many listeners do we have?
Oh, there's about 20. 20 or so of the live people. We didn't advertise this or anything, so it just happens to be the people that are lurking at t.me/ScottStream. So we're going to talk about Gibbon next. Karl is going to be all messed up for a couple of weeks with being a person.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got maybe a Western we're going to throw in there, and then we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so commentaries. I'm using a different mic, so I might come in and out. So the way that you would get educated in the 13th century and the 12th century, you would go to the university. You were studying, I think, either to do law or to be clergy. So actually, Thomas Aquinas' degree is, he's a doctor of, Doctor of the Sacred Page, I think. So he doesn't have a PhD. So he's a scripture scholar. But in order to read the Bible well, it seemed to him and to them that he needed to be able to read Aristotle and to understand everything else, which is an interesting thought, that you can't, to read any book. Part of the reason for the development of universities in the Western tradition is because it's a culture based on interpretation of a very difficult book.
The most difficult book.
Yeah, so you need to be a man of letters yourself in order to dive into it. And so, what you would do is typically you would do a commentary on the sentences of Peter Lombard. Peter Lombard, I think, is in the 1100s. He just collected a whole bunch of quotes. I'd have to dig. I don't have it open right now, but you can probably find it on the internet, dear listener, what the sentences are. And a lot of them are contradictory. There'll be opposite opinions on moral issues or scriptural issues or whatever. And so if you were getting your degree, you would prepare and write a commentary on the sentences. And then it would be judged by your dissertation committee, and then they decide to give you the degree. Well, Thomas Aquinas also has commentaries on, I'm just looking here at the table of contents here, at Aquinas.cc, which I just discovered. And it's a wonderful resource. We both got it open up on our computers. He's got commentaries on the Old Testament, on the Psalms, on Lamentations, Isaiah, Job. That'd be a good one to read. He has gospel commentaries. This is Aquinas. He has gospel commentaries on letters of St. Paul. He has the Catena Aurea, the Golden Chain, which is a marvelous work. You can actually buy this in paper. A collection of patristic quotes. It's like his notebook. It's a fantastic book to have. And then commentaries on Aristotle.
Yeah. On de anima, on sense and what is sense, physics, meteorology, on interpretation, posterior analytics, ethics, politics, and then metaphysics. Any of that, on the heavens, on generation and corruption. Any one of those is enough for a guy to put out and make a mark on the map. But not Thomas. He's got to do all of them. Towering genius. None of it's something that somebody'd say, well, that's one of his lesser works. If he does it, it's killer. Exhaustive and thorough and rigorous and honest.
Well, he has a work on kingship, which I would say is a lesser work because he didn't finish it.
It's a letter, too. It's really...
to the king of Cyprus, I believe.
Yeah, it's not like this. Should we do it?
Yeah, so I want to describe the website to you. So, dear listener, go to Aquinas.cc, and you can pull up the commentary on the metaphysics. It's very cool. I wish I'd had this for my dissertation. It's got Latin on the left, at least for me. Ooh, I think we can change languages.
Yeah, you can get Greek. Who would want that?
Thomas Aquinas in Greek? You don't get him in Greek.
It's dumb.
No, only the Greek parts go in Greek. So you have Latin on the left, English on the right. You can double-click words and get their definitions. It's really a cool website. But we'll probably read it in English. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, look at this. I'm going to share my screen with the Telegram people. Look at that. Mess around.
Wow.
That's glorious. So they can see what we're looking at. This Aquinas.cc is really powerful. You can make notes on here and display your notes. And then I love that Thomisticus Institute has the great big index. So you can look up whatever and it'll tell you, it's an entire index of Aquinas and it'll tell you where to find any given thing that he may have written about. Really, really powerful tool. How we want to do this? Do you want me to read and then you read and then I read?
Well, I think we're going to end up going sentence by sentence. I thought probably these first two sentences would be enough, but we'll see.
Right, that'll be a show.
So this is the prologue. We haven't gotten to Aristotle yet. When several things are ordained to one thing, one of them must rule or govern, and the rest be ruled or governed, as the philosopher teaches in the Politics. Right there.
I've read my Aristotle. So he says this in the Politics, but he also says it in Posterior and Prior Analytics. There is priority, there is cause and effect. There are things that come before other things and necessarily must come in order for the other one to come. There is act and potentiality. And this is a thing in Aristotle. There is cause and effect. And cause and effect also happens in the social sciences. And that's why he references the Politics here.
Yeah, well, it's a hierarchical view of everything. The reason I thought we might stop right there is just because it's the anti-modern thought.
Right.
When many things are ordained to one thing, it is fitting. Sorry, I'm looking at the Latin. It is one of them must rule or govern, and everything else is either ruled or governed.
He's translating in his own words the Latin on the fly because he's a show-off and a nerd.
Well, Aquinas' Latin is pretty easy.
His English isn't. I don't know how his Latin would be.
So, thus, this is evident in union of soul and body. So he gives an example. For the soul naturally commands and the body obeys. Okay, fair enough.
I mean, if you believe that.
Yeah, well...
if you're not a materialist, right? Like, if you believe that.
Even if you're a materialist, materialists get hung up.
The hard question of...
Well, everybody wants to think they're into declare them to be something, and then they are that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too much into that. You guys know what I'm talking about. But in order for that to be true, there has to be a part of you that rules the other part. In order for you to say that somehow your body is wrong, there has to be a part of you that is more than your body.
Well, yes. But even at a more basic level, if you grab a bottle or a pencil, how did that happen? Something had to govern that and create that desire or that appetite for pencil holding or whatever.
Yeah.
But, somebody, Ignatius Rogers just asked in the chat here, how many years into online great books before you make it to Aquinas? I said, it's 4. And the reason for that is you got to go read. You don't necessarily have to read Homer to get the good out of Aquinas, but I think you need to read Prometheus Bound. I think you need to read all of Plato, or a big part of it. You need to read a big part of Aquinas. I'm sorry, of Aristotle, because we're 3 sentences in. We're talking about soul. We're talking about this hierarchical Greek and classical view of the world with priority and posteriority and cause and effect and act and potency, all that stuff. Like you've got to build up a fund of knowledge so that you can deal with this darn thing. It takes 4 years to do that. Unless you're speed running.
Yeah, well, you probably got to chew on it a little bit. The joke is Aquinas supposedly said somewhere following Socrates that you shouldn't do metaphysics till you're 50. And, he got hit by that tree branch and died when he was 49.
Right.
So this is just beginner stuff. Now, the notion of hierarchy, I think, is important and can maybe really transform your worldview. Some things are more important than other things. And once you realize this, you can start ordering things or see how they are ordered. If you go to the ethics, now that I see this website, I have paper copies of some of these, but they're packed away. But I can just go read his commentary on the ethics. I think I'm going to do that. But, you figure out everything's for, well, he says that later in this paragraph. Let me just read.
Yeah, let's keep going.
The same is true of the soul's powers for the concupiscible, I can't say that word, concupiscible and irascible, I'm just going to skip that. And irascible appetites are ruled in a natural order by reason.
Concupiscible.
Now, all the sciences and arts are ordained to one thing, namely, listen carefully, all the sciences and arts are ordained to one thing, namely, to man's perfection, which is happiness.
Ruh-roh. Why did he do that?
It's either true or it isn't. But if it's true, a whole lot makes sense.
Okay. I just typed into oed.com, which you get free.
As a member.
As part of your membership at Online Great Books. The word concupiscible.
I think that's the second definition.
Yeah. Vehemently desirous, characterized by desire or longing of the nature of concupiscence.
All right, now look up irascible.
Irascible.
So you've got desires like for food and sex and that sort of thing. And then you have the irascible, which would be...
Easily... Of emotions. In Plato's tripartite division of the soul, one of the 2 parts of the irrational nature...
So like euthumos, you're the part that gets angry. So you have the part of you that desires stuff and the part of you that responds to threats. Both of them are ruled in a natural order by reason.
Ooh, is the irascible appetite ruled by reason?
I'm so mad right now I could punch you in the face. But I'm not going to.
Well, okay, but the appetite is for that. But your reason, I guess, okay, your rule is hierarchical and it can override your irascibility.
Right.
Okay, I want to give a recap. Prologue. When several things are ordained to one thing, one of them must rule or govern, and the rest be ruled or governed, as the philosopher teaches in the Politics. This is evident in the union of soul and body, for the soul naturally commands and the body obeys. The same thing is true of the soul's powers, for the concupiscible and irascible appetites are ruled in a natural order by reason. This is how I would do it, by the way, Karl. I would read it along, and I'd pick it apart, and I'd be like, I don't know. I've stopped 3 times. And then I'd go back and hit it one more time at least one more time to
Yeah.
make it flow and kind of figure it all out. Then he goes on to say, now, all the sciences and arts are ordained to one thing, namely to man's perfection, which is happiness.
Wait. I work at the university, and we have the Department of History and the Engineering Department, and they're not ordered to the same thing.
Well, why do we engineer? Why do we do history?
Because we got tenure.
Why do you have tenure? No, that was a slip. Why do you have tenure?
Because it makes me happy. Yeah, I used to do that trick. I probably told this story. I used to do that trick when I taught regular classes, like with students in a classroom. The first day I would say, "Why are you here?" And then I'd wait for them to say something. And somebody eventually would say, "Because it's on the schedule." And then I would just keep asking questions. Well, why do you follow your schedule? So I can get a degree. Why do you want a degree? So I can make money. Why do you want to make money? So I can buy stuff. What kind of stuff? Why do you buy this stuff? And it always ends up with some form of to be happy. Nobody knows what happiness is.
No, there's the deal. Yeah.
But they're all trying to get it. And like Aristotle says in the Ethics, wouldn't it be better to know, wouldn't you hit the target better if you knew what the target was?
Mm-hmm.
If you're an archer and you're blindfolded, you might hit the target. It'd be better if you took the blindfold off and knew what you're aiming at. So the claim here that we're aiming to happiness, which, well, he has these synonyms here. Man's perfection, which is happiness. Perfectionem hominis. The completion. And I double-click on the word on Aquinas.cc, so I double-click on the Latin word, perfection, completion, bringing to completion, ideal, completed form. So happiness.
Wait a minute. You double-clicked that and it gave you something?
I double-clicked. You didn't.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, but it didn't give you anything. Mine's better than yours.
Yours is better.
Maybe because what did I do? Did I go to the...
His computer runs color.
Oh, it's because I click. If you go to the left, show them, go up there and click on Alpheus Lookup.
Oh, killer. Oh my gosh, I might learn Latin. Mess around.
It's a third declension, noun, feminine.
This is the problem with all of this Aristotle and Aquinas. He says, which is happiness? Well, that naturally, we've already read our Plato, so that naturally makes us say in our mind, well, what is happiness? Quit speeding here. You're slipping stuff in. Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't read this book before. I don't think he's going to tell us what happiness is, but he tells us in both of the Summa.
Yeah.
It's the obtaining the beatific vision.
Yeah. The idea that it's the perfection of man, perfection of humans, that's interesting. These people listening to this aren't really commenting very much.
They're not.
But it's in Matthew 5 or 6, you must be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. The goal of human life is to be complete.
Right. That's for Aquinas, perfection means complete, whole, without part, nothing is missing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what it means. Ben says in the chat, do you want us to go off on materialist? No, if you want, I mean, we can do that. Carl and I, we don't have to have you do it. Yeah, so he wants man to be. Well, I'll read it again. Now, all the sciences and arts are ordained to one thing, namely to man's perfection, which is happiness. That's a difficult sentence. So to man's perfection, or let me paraphrase it. All the sciences and arts are pointed at one thing, which is man's completeness. That state is happiness.
Right.
Would you accept my paraphrase of that?
Yeah, I think so. I want to look because we can look at the Latin. You can look over, and it's not. So there's a few words for happiness in Latin. But if you look off to the left, you can see it's beatitudo, beatitude, supreme happiness, blessedness, a blessed condition, beatitude. So it's not quite just the English word happiness isn't great.
No,
it's related to the word happen. Like if you look down and you see there's a $20 bill on the ground, you're happy because something happened to you.
Yeah, you happened upon it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Greeks are so much better at this. They're like, Eskimos have all these words for snow. Like the Greeks have all these different words for emotional states that English people just don't have.
Well, maybe we don't have those emotional states.
I don't see the sea as wine dark.
No.
I believe.
No, it's because it was in the North Sea.
I believe they see Cabernet colored seas. Don't you?
Well, the thing is, where was Troy?
Iceland.
Right. These are deep secrets you're getting here on the Online Great Books podcast, live edition.
Yeah. I'll go on. Hence, one of these sciences and arts must be the mistress of all the others, and this rightly lays claim to the name of wisdom, for it is the office of the wise man to direct others. Oh, boy.
One of the sciences and arts must be mistress of all the others. Yeah, so you go to your university, which has its list of departments, and you go down the list and say, sorry, one of these is in charge. Well, which one is it? Sociology? No. Math? Closer.
Yeah, Aristotle in his Metaphysics book 1 goes into this. I mean, that's what it is. He talks about the primacy of this, the first of sciences.
Metaphysics, or first philosophy.
The science of being qua being.
Yeah, so philosophy is sort of. Philosophy would be the head science for natural human. You'd be in charge of everything else.
So philosophy would be prior to metaphysics? I guess it would.
Well, metaphysics, so Aristotle calls metaphysics first philosophy. Sometimes he calls it theology, the study of God. But that word's fraught. Yeah, the love of wisdom. Well, what's the highest aspect of philosophy? It's not ethics. It's the study of causes, first causes. If there were such a thing as a revealed religion, then theology would be higher, because it would have access to truth beyond that which the mind could get. But the highest truth that the mind could get is in metaphysics. I think I'm being fair to Aquinas.
I think so.
It is the office of the wise man to direct others.
Uh-oh. It's the opposite of this is the flip side of the natural slave coin.
Yeah, it is. If there is such a thing as wise, that means the office of those who have wisdom is to direct others.
Yeah, who do you want? Yeah, there's a lot here, right? I think that we would have a desire to be ruled by those that were wise versus those that were foolish.
No, I want to be ruled by the one that's going to let me do the things that I want.
Because the highest good is license.
Yep, personal liberty, that's the highest good.
That's the highest good. We've got a couple things in here, Karl. Somebody says, Zach says, if you were complete, would you be happy?
Yeah. If you were perfected, Zach, if you had reached your telos, which is another word to say perfected, your end, which is, Aquinas would say, is beatitude, which consists in the beatific vision, if you read his first part of the second part of the Big Summa. Yeah, how could you not be?
How about this? If you're complete, you would have nothing to appetite for. There would be no longing.
There'd just be having.
It would just be having. And whatever it was, whether you conform to Aquinas' belief system or not, if you were complete and there was no longing and there was only having, whatever it was that was your highest value, you would have.
Yeah, and you know what happens when you are actively having a good? This is joy. Whatever joy is, it's what you have when you get the thing that you wanted. I don't mean like you
the Millennium Falcon Lego set.
I suppose, but more like you finally married that girl. Now let's be joyful. But it's not the joy. It's not like I just ate a big meal and I'm joyful because I'm so full I couldn't eat. No, that's not joy. Joy goes along with activity. So this is a thing that Aquinas taught me about Aristotle. I think it's in Aristotle. The danger of Aquinas, of reading Aristotle through Aquinas, is you might get more Aquinas than Aristotle. You have to be careful.
That's always the problem with secondary sources.
Yeah. But I think So my Aristotle teacher told me he's a really good reader of Aristotle, Aquinas is. But he said happiness is an activity.
Aristotle did, yes.
Well, he did, but I didn't catch it until I read Thomas saying it.
It's all he says.
Yeah, but not so clear. I mean, just clear. Happiness is activity. Stripped of an activity of soul in accordance with virtue. And if there are, more than one of these, and with the fullest and most complete. Yeah, but when Aquinas said it and just said happiness is activity, that made it very, very clear for me. Happiness is not satiety. It is not an emotional state. It is not being comfortable. It is doing.
Yeah.
And that's a big change. That's
I've got a nose whistle.
Hmm?
I've got a nose whistle.
Yeah, well, don't put it up right in the microphone.
Brett will help us out.
This live format's probably going to be trouble.
Oh, I don't know. The Telegram chat's going sick on it. So I've led some seminars, not as many as you, and I've been part of a lot of good discussions of Aristotle and Aquinas. As English-speaking, as Anglophone world people have hell with this because our this happiness word just doesn't, it's just not enough.
Right.
And we just, and in those seminars and in those discussions, we just chase continually joy, happiness. Then somebody will say, well, eudaimonia, and it just goes around and around and around.
If I'm sitting in my basement eating Cheetos and watching porn and I like it, aren't I happy?
Aren't I happy?
No. You're not.
No.
Well, actually, maybe you are with the English word happy, but you're not experiencing beatitude.
No. Or even that Greek eudaimonia. Not that deep, purpose-fulfilling
You're not
satiety.
being perfected.
Yeah. Onward. Paragraph 2. Let's see. Wait a minute, Karl. Wait a minute. Okay, paragraph 2. Wait a minute. 32 minutes. We can discover which science this is and the sort of things with which it deals by carefully examining the qualities of a good ruler. This is a fascinating approach. I've never read a word of this book. That is a fascinating approach already. I want to read one more sentence or two. For just as men of superior intelligence are naturally the rulers and masters of others, whereas those of great physical strength and little intelligence are naturally slaves, as the philosopher says in the aforementioned book. In a similar way, the science that is intellectual in the highest degree should be naturally the ruler of the others. This science is the one that treats of the most intelligible objects.
Lots of hierarchy here.
Lots of hierarchy. Yeah, and figuring out which is the preeminent science by examining the qualities of a good ruler. That's so interesting. That is not Aristotle's approach in Book 1.
Mm-hmm.
What does he call Avicenna? So Aquinas, he says the philosopher. Does he call him the teacher?
Avicenna might be the commentator.
I think he's the commentator. Thomas needs to be the teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
The doctor.
The angelic doctor. Oh, look at Jimmy. He says, from Summa Contra Gentiles, Book 3, Chapter 37, it is therefore evident by way of induction that man's ultimate happiness consists solely in the contemplation of God. Yeah, that is the beatific vision.
Well, sort of. Sort of, because if you are a natural man, what I mean is if revealed religion hasn't been revealed to you, or if there is no such thing, the highest that you can do is a theoretical contemplation of God. You know what Aristotle talks about in the end of the Ethics. And by God here, first cause. So you consider what is the nature of the cause of all causes. That you have to be careful when you're reading Aristotle and Aquinas that you don't make Aristotle into the super Christian, because he's not.
No.
He's not. He doesn't know anything about it. The contemplation that Aristotle does is the best that humans can do, he thinks. If there's anything more than that, it would require a revelation.
We're pointing at the orthodox mistake.
What's the orthodox mistake?
One of them, about Thomas. In the Summas, Summae,
I don't know, Summas.
In the two
We're
Summas,
speaking English.
particularly the little one, he says, look, we can know this first cause in two ways. One, through our rationality, and two, by revelation. And he's like, we can't know everything about it through rationality. We can't. And I can't make you have a revelation, though that would be awesome. So we're going to table that for this book. And this book is strictly about approaching it through rationality. He is not Spock. He is not. But he says explicitly, I can't do the revelation thing here for you. And I hope you have it. But I can lay out this syllogism for you. So let's go. He is a charismatic spiritual creature, but not in his books.
Oh, yeah. Well, Thomas was a mystic.
Yeah.
He used to levitate, apparently.
I believe it. This I believe.
Yeah, but I wanted to, this is some trivia because I know there's a bunch of ortho bros that hang out on your Telegram channel.
I don't know how that happened. It's so weird.
Yeah. But there was, in the Byzantine Empire, a Thomistic revival in the 14th and 15th centuries. Capella Romana is a choir that specializes in Orthodox music, Orthodox chant. And you can listen to them chant in Greek a troparion, I think it's in tone 1, to St. Thomas Aquinas. That they didn't just write, that has existed since. But what happened to put an end to that? It's a long story.
They stole some property?
I'm sorry, I'm tripping over the joke.
Well,
I'm being a Reynolds here. Well, what stopped it was a couple of things. I think, well, go too far down this rabbit hole. Was Mark of Ephesus, Saint Mark of Ephesus' rejection of the Council of Florence, and then the Turks coming in and putting a stop to any sort of intellectual life in Constantinople. So,
Turks anti-intellectual?
Well, anti-Christian intellectual. It wasn't of their interest to have East and West talk to each other.
Ignatius here. We have a guy in Telegram named Ignatius.
Yeah.
Ortho bro checking in.
Ignatius O'Reilly.
Yeah, Daniel Schell. Yeah, he says, didn't he talk to Paul and Peter when he was working on his commentaries? They visited him in his room. I believe that's right. That's what we're told. Back to the book. Now, most intelligible objects can be understood in 3 ways. Way the first, from the viewpoint of the order of knowing. Those things from which the intellect derives certitude seem to be more intelligible. Therefore, since the certitude of science is acquired by the intellect knowing causes, a knowledge of causes seems to be intellectual in the highest degree. Hence, that science that considers first causes also seems to be the ruler of the others in the highest degree. The more intelligible it is, the higher it is.
And the closer it is to the cause, the more intelligible it is.
How is metaphysics intelligible? It's about being. Everything that you have an experience of has being.
Well, all right, so let's take a metaphysical claim. The part is less than the whole.
Okay.
All right. Are you uncertain of that?
Yeah, Peter Gabriel in Genesis. Just blew up Aquinas. See?
Well, there you go. I was thinking like a circle. A part of a circle is less than the circle. Are you at all in any doubt about that?
About Peter Gabriel?
No, about. Let's table Peter Gabriel.
Okay, for now. This must be dealt with.
The principle of non-contradiction.
Right.
Is there any doubt about that?
No,
Could there be any doubt
not for
about
me.
that? Well, let's go further. That a being cannot be its own cause. Is there any doubt about that?
Not for me. We're sneaking. I want to read here. The law of non-contradiction states that contradictory propositions cannot both be true in the same sense at the same time. Yeah.
If you, I am climbing. What was the last one I gave?
What was it, chat? Oh, a thing cannot be its own cause.
Okay. All right. Well, there is a first cause that causes all the rest. That is itself uncaused.
Yes. I mean,
how certain is that?
It's not a deadlock. Now, I buy it. So this is his first proof, right, for the existence of God, the prime mover, the prime mover talk from Aquinas. He says that an infinite regress can't be.
Right.
But then he says something else that's also paradoxical, is that there's an uncaused cause. So which paradox do you want? Well, I choose the uncaused cause because it doesn't pose additional problems. If I allow an infinite regress, nothing works at that point.
Yeah. Well, to say an infinite regress is really to say that there isn't. You're getting rid of causality. So for the fork in the road here is either causality is a thing or it isn't. And if it's a thing, then it seems there has to be a primary cause. And you can go as far on that as you want. It doesn't mean we have to be careful here of what you're actually proving. It's like bad versions of the design argument, which sees a conch shell and says, "Ooh, therefore Jesus." No, it doesn't say that. No. You have to be chaste in your intellectual approach here.
Just can't be slutty with your intellect.
Yeah, just be a peck on the cheek here. And say, if causality works, it seems that there must be a first cause that is unlike the other causes.
Yeah, Aquinas writes for pages and pages and pages and pages before you really get to anything that looks like God that you heard about at Sunday school.
Yeah.
It's all about physics, really, about motion and how motion's transmitted and where it could have come from, and then how motion is initiated and all of that. So you get to first mover. And I think all rational people would assent to the first mover argument.
Yeah, well, if you don't, I think you need to be honest. Well, maybe you don't because then you're non-rational, but be honest and realize that you're abandoning something of rationality. A long time ago, we read something from Nietzsche about this, about the consequences of God being dead. If that is in fact the case, then, causality goes away. He goes through a list of things that go away. Morality goes away.
Hold tight.
You think no, Milton, you can't have my coffee. You think you can hold the world, you get rid of that first cause and the world's going to hold together. It's like a Jenga tower. But if you are brave, I love Nietzsche, if you are brave, perhaps you can set out this way and explore the consequences of that thought. But you might end up hiding under the bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So... if you're going to go with rationality, that there's a real strong tendency to drive you upstream to a first cause.
Yeah. So that's the first way intelligible objects can be understood. I'll read that again, and then we'll go read the second one. First, from the viewpoint of the order of knowing, those things from which the intellect derives certitude seem to be more intelligible. Therefore, since the certitude of science is acquired by the intellect knowing causes, a knowledge of causes seems to be intellectual in the highest degree. Hence, that science that considers first causes also seems to be the ruler of the others in the highest degree. I buy it.
I want to look up a Latin word.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry, but I can.
I know, it's pretty slick.
Oh, I don't even get this one doesn't show up. The word for ruler is regulatrix.
Ah.
That sounds cool.
I agree.
Would you like to have a regulatrix?
No.
I just want to be clear. When Thomas says that is going to say that metaphysics rules the other sciences, in what way does it rule it? You could be ruled by your local agriculture board. I don't think that's what it means.
Yeah, if your metaphysics is wrong, all the sciences, wait a minute. Any science that you develop, whether it's chemistry or physics or social sciences or theology or material sciences or whatever, are based on metaphysical assumptions.
Yes.
If your metaphysical assumptions are wrong, your bridge will fall down.
Yes, but it is not like metaphysics is standing over you with a ruler saying, I'm in charge of you.
No, it's priority, right? For him, it's hierarchical. It's priority. If your foundation is good, that which follows has a better chance of being good. If your foundation is bad, metaphysics is the foundation, then you will have trannies in the girls' bathroom.
Probably.
Yeah. Second, secundo, by comparing the intellect with the senses. While sensory perception is a knowledge of particulars, the intellect seems to differ from sense by reason of the fact that it comprehends universals. This is so important. Hence, that science is preeminently intellectual, which deals with the most universal principles. These principles are being and those things that follow being, such as unity and plurality, potency and act.
Okay. That's probably all we're going to get through today.
Oh, no, I know. Okay, here we go. Sensory perception is knowledge of particulars. I look at a tree. I am looking at that particular tree that's missing that leaf and has those lobes on that other leaf and that kind of bark and is X feet tall, etc. That is a particular tree.
Yeah, I'm going to quarrel with the translator.
Oh, my God.
I'm sorry, I got Latin here. I'm going to do it. Sensus sit cognitio particularium. So it's cognition of particulars. It's not knowledge of particulars necessarily.
It's the processing of those.
Well, I'm drinking a little bit of lukewarm coffee here, and
Karl and I are in the same room.
Yeah,
Together
it's really hard for me. He's physically aggressive. And there's a cat. No, it's fine. But you drink the coffee, and I'm not getting knowledge of coffee. I'm tasting. What am I? I'm getting a taste of bitterness. The temperature. There's no texture to coffee, so it's just the texture of the liquid. If you think about what it is that the senses are perceiving, we take knowledge words and we bleed them down into sensation all the time. We're real sloppy about that, especially materialists who think that you can get knowledge from the senses. You get no such thing.
They call emotions feelings.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they reduce it to a sense thing.
I'm not feeling love when I drink coffee. I'm feeling bitterness. And, maybe whatever the coffee flavor is.
What's an Aristotelian or Thomist particular? What does that mean?
That's a good question.
I think that is an individual metaphysical accident of that thing in front of you that you are having a sense experience of.
So you might perceive redness if you look at the maple tree in autumn. But you think that you're sensing the maple tree. And I want you, dear listener, to be careful about that. You're not sensing the maple tree. You are sensing redness. You're not even quite sensing shape. You are sensing light in different areas, which later on in the process, you figure out are shapes. Bare sense data is of no such thing as a tree. It needs to be assembled. Aquinas says it happens in the imagination, which is a physical capacity in the human. It's not intellectual.
Yeah, you observe something, and you observe it with all of your senses for him. And then you assemble that sense data in the imagination. You form an image. No, a phantasm. That's a phantasm at this point, yes?
Yeah.
A phantasm. And then you are able to compare that phantasm to universals that you have already identified.
Miraculously abstracted from the phantasm.
Yeah. And then you are able to identify that thing when you compare it to the universal. So there is Thomist epistemology in here, like theory of knowledge here in this paragraph. So you're right. This is the next three shows, this paragraph. The Thomist particular are all the things that make an individual thing that and not its universal. That tree's height, that tree's shape, that tree's whatever. Right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think yes.
Those are the particulars. But he says, while sensory perception is a knowledge of particulars, so your sensory perception of those particulars is not the particular. I think that's the point you were making.
Ooh, that might be the way to read it. So my quarrel is, I'm just looking at the sentence. He doesn't even say sensory perception. He says sensus sit cognitio particularium. Take the Latin away from me.
I know. Karl won't read this.
The sensory perception is what they choose for the Latin word sensus. The bare sense, the thing that my finger feels when I'm putting on the computer keyboard right now, there's very little of knowledge about it. By the time I make even the slightest judgment about that, it's more than a bare sense. Even if I perceive like smoothness, I've put that in a universal.
Yeah, the Thomist cognitive process happens so quickly that naturally we're not even aware of it. So you touch that and you immediately say smoothness. We have already formed a phantasm in the imagination and derived a universal from that and compared it to previous knowledge and said smooth. It's blah, blah, bam.
Yep. Daniel Schell says forms. Exactly.
Kind of. Wait a minute. Ignatius again, he says, in looking out and seeing the world around us, how do we know and differentiate particular objects from everything else around it? I don't know if you're talking about in particular vision or if you're actually talking about how do we use particulars to identify that tree versus the other tree? I don't know exactly what you mean there, but Thomas does have answers for this.
Well, he says in the next sentence, Ignatius says, we have to be born with some idea of universals. Patterns, sorry, I don't know, own his vocab.
Oh, okay. I get it.
You know, the funny thing is, so this is all in there. Universals are tied up with all of your cognitive acts. When you get to my favorite good old 20th century continental philosophy, the phenomenologists, what they're doing is actually trying to get the universals back. Mm-hmm. When Husserl says back to the things themselves, he doesn't mean sensory particulars. He means universals. How do we get back to the universals, which he finds he comes at it from the other end. Nobody on this chat cares about Husserl, but he comes at it from the other end, from intellect down to things, where Thomas is coming from things up to intellect.
Yeah, which is the right way to be. Well, I mean, if you go from the things up, if you take the Thomas approach versus the Husserl approach, then Ignatius's problem of the blank slate child is really kind of fixed. Like, as long as you have the sensory array and the human mind, which is a gift from God and all these things that Aquinas says, then you have the equipment. You have the equipment to develop the universals on your own. Like, you don't have to have any concept of treeness, because you get presented if you have the right sensory equipment and you see enough trees, just being created in the image of God, being wired the way you are, you will derive a universal from that, and you'll understand treeness.
Yeah, or as Socrates put it, you pre-existed and you knew the forms, and you're recollecting.
No, hey, don't be sneaky like that.
Okay, so in a very tiny 30-second defense of 20th century continental philosophy, they had Descartes in the middle of this and a time of radical doubt, and it's not so easy for stupid moderns to have that easy faith in the power of human intellect to abstract forms. It needed to be recovered. I don't know how successful it was, because we're still stuck in postmodern.
This will seem flippant to you, but this is just as natural as breathing in and out to me, that there are universals.
Well, like I say, you're less degenerate than I am.
I don't know about that. Let's see here. Jimmy says, this is a question. Your senses tell you the things about the particulars, and the aggregation of those things leads you to the universals? Well, in the philosopher's book, Metaphysics, he will tell us about essences and the four causes and so on. And so when you somehow automagically, when we observe enough trees, we discover the essence of treeness. And then when we see something that else that holds that same essence, then we know that it shares in the universal treeness and that it is a tree.
The somehow covers a lot. Jimmy, I think you're correct. The aggregation, but the mere aggregation isn't a universal. If I could make a list of that cedar outside the window, that's a cedar, right?
Yeah. Dang it.
And I made a list of all of its characteristics. That's still not cedar tree. Just a list is not the same thing. At some point, and this is when we do the magic language, at some point, this is where if you have gone through Aristotle's book on the soul.
Thanks for coming, Joseph. He's dropping out. Thank you.
The agent intellect, which is this really interesting idea that Aristotle comes up with, that he kind of uses this hand-wavy language too, that there is some power, there is an active intellect which abstracts the form from the passive intellect. And this, if anything, is immortal, he says, which Aristotle's really pretty restrained on at least in the treatises on religion stuff. So he says this agent intellect, this active intellect, that power that can come up with a universal out of finite particulars, that at least is immortal. There's another guy, another Arab philosopher, Averroes. That's his Latin name. It's Ibn Rushd in Arabic, that Thomas talks about. The fact that you and I can both look at a tree and get a universal of tree that we can both communicate about, it's really weird that we're both having particular experiences and getting a universal. So Averroes came up with the very weird, but not so weird idea that there is an agent intellect, but there's only one.
Right, yeah.
Which kind of makes sense. It's sort of the Socratic recollection idea that we all share in some experience above the senses that allows us universals. And I know some of you are out there grinding your teeth saying this is weird, mystical crap, but so is
your mind.
Yeah, your mind is weird, mystical crap.
Yeah, you have dreams. What the hell?
Well, more than dreams, you know that 2 + 2 = 4 always and everywhere. How? You're able to partake of things that are true, even though the universe, through the heat death of the universe. That's remarkable.
Thomas says, no, yeah, but it's explicable. You were created in the image of your creator, which has knowledge of all things and is the perfection above all perfections. And by partaking in that, being created in that image, you are equipped to see these universals, and somehow there you go.
Yeah. The funny thing about this live stream is that we're talking about Aquinas, and Trent and Eric are talking about protein calculation for weightlifting.
Yeah, it's a crazy place. I am a little bit of a materialist on this. Kind of. Kind of, sort of. I'm materialist adjacent. I believe that the way the human mind works, however that came to be, makes it so that we cannot help but to recognize the universal or the essential.
But how does that make you a materialist?
I think there is an old part of me that thinks that there's something about the way the neurons are all connected that makes this happen. But I buy Aquinas's discussion. He created in the image of the creator. Well, he's not like 6'2" and got a mediocre squat. That can't be what the image means.
5'11" and a half.
Right.
That's a fantastic squat.
Right. And a terrible deadlift and can barely reach his fly.
There are. So I'm on this trip with one of my daughters, and we have things on the dashboard. Like you can turn the seat heater, that we call it the seat heater, but you can, or the heat seater, where you can have like warmth come out of the bottom of your.
You can bake your nuts.
It's the best thing about modern cars, but I can't reach the thing.
Right.
And so she'll just hit it for me.
You need a reaching stick.
I do.
Yeah, I think that there is something about the human mind that allows us to identify the universal and integrate all these things and to create and to identify new universals. So I don't think that we have to have a theory of recollection like Socrates has, and I don't think that we have to partake in a divine knowledge. I think the way we are created allows us to find the new universal. So kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, I think that we could see a new phylum, and if we saw enough of those, we go, hey, it's a new phylum, and then be able to list what those universals were that essentially defined that phylum and have never seen it before. I think we're just wired that way. I think that's some of personness. I think that's some of the divinity in us.
I would agree, except that I don't think David Bentley Hart has a book on God, contemplate. It's actually a metaphysics book, and he's a weird dude.
He's got 3 names,
but that book is fire. His defense of traditional metaphysics is pretty good, and he got me thinking back to immateriality of the soul. That might be the conclusion you have to make. Just from the nature of knowledge. That it's assembling a whole bunch of circuits and wiring them. It's a category mistake. It's a leap to go from even, millions and millions and millions of circuits to the universal in the soul. Yeah. They're not the same thing.
Artificial intelligence cannot exist. Information exists without an intellect. Ones and zeros, a switch is up where it's down, information exists. But it takes an intellect to create knowledge from that and to identify the universal. and then develop a course
the
of
artificial
action.
intelligence is going to have universals programmed into it by a programmer who is not an artificial intelligence.
And who has terrible metaphysics.
Probably.
And I mean, it's a disaster. It's a category error. The idea that you can have artificial intelligence is a category error. It's a terrible mistake.
You'll have things that seem like they're intelligent.
Yeah, that passed the Turing test. Go see my article about the grandma bot.
I don't read your stuff.
Did you not read it?
Yeah, I did read the grandma.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. Yeah, so he says that the second way that we know things is by comprehending universals, and that the preeminent science will be the one that deals with the universals.
With the most universal.
With the most
principles.
universal. Yeah.
And then he gives examples, which is good. Being, and those things that follow being, such as unity, plurality, potency, and act. Those are big-time Thomistic metaphysics, and therefore metaphysics concepts.
Right, because there is only one. One metaphysics to rule them all.
Yes.
Are you a Thomist? Wait a minute. Are you a scholastic metaphysically, but want to use like the continental phenomenology to shore it up? Is that how you are?
So the problem with all of this stuff is not that it's false. The problem is that degenerate moderns don't know how to understand it. What in the world is potency and act? What are you talking about? Covalent bonds being broken? You have to you have to find where the contact can be made, and the best of the continentals seems to me to be trying to do that. But doing it in places where degenerate moderns hang out, which is in their own minds.
I know what you're saying. That's that's a little slick.
Well, we are what we are, and you grow up in the age you grow up, and the listeners have grown up in an age of radical doubt, where nothing is true.
Yeah,
even to make a claim that anything's true is to be, a Nazi or a fascist or something.
Even physicists don't believe anything's true, and if they run into an error in their math, they make up shit like dark matter. Like everything's a mess. And and if you buy that, then I understand that Thomas seems crazy, but to me, it jives with my experience of moving around in the world.